WSBA, with the latest news and weather on the hour, every hour. Newsradio 910 WSBA. Depend on it.
Newsradio 910 WSBA, with military greetings from far away.
Hi, my name is Master Sergeant Martin Cruz. I'm coming from Camp Carroll, South Korea, and I want to send a special holiday message to my grandma, Carmen, my sister, Samaira, and my brother David, and the rest of the family out there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I love you guys. I miss you, and I hope to see you soon.
Good morning. This is the Morning News on WSBA, the Thursday morning edition, hour number 2. I'm Gary Sutton. Chris Tyler on assignment today. WSBA news time is 7:10. Well, you heard us earlier in the week talking with Joel Sears, and also later on with Stan Saylor, the representative for the 94th legislative here, and also the majority whip in the state House, about the different approaches to property tax. One, Bill 1189, the other one, SB and HB 76, that are before the Pennsylvania State Assembly right now. And essentially what those bills do is transfer a lot of the power to the local school boards away from the state in terms of determining what their taxes would be. With us this morning is a guy who has some thoughts on taxes in general and why his group may not necessarily support either plan right now. We're talking about Matt Brouillette, President and CEO of the Commonwealth Foundation, and he's with us here on the Morning News. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good, Gary. Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure, Matt. Now, you know, a lot of tax bills flying around in Harrisburg, and of course, these two that I mentioned, 1189 and 76, are the two biggest ones. But, you know, in looking at them right now, property tax has been something we've been dealing with since, like 1972, and trying to find out not the best way to tax people, but the least unfair way to tax people in this country to support public education and other programs as well. Your thoughts this morning about those programs and those proposed programs out there for taxation?
Well, that's a good way to put it, Gary, because we are simply talking about which pocket of the taxpayer we're going to extract money out for public education. And so we're dealing with just one side of the ledger, and that's the revenue side. And that means really, for us organizationally at Commonwealth Foundation, we're very interested in the spending side of the equation, the expenditures. And until we address that, the tax take, whether it's from the front pocket or the back pocket of property taxes or income taxes, it's going to go up and up and up. And so our position is that we have to deal with both sides of the ledger. Just dealing with the revenue side is not going to be sufficient, and it's really not going to provide the relief that I believe that the taxpayers are demanding. And that's where a holistic or a comprehensive approach is going to be necessary here if we really want to solve this problem.
Take us inside that a little bit more specifically now. It's kind of laid out the boundaries. So what do you see as the components that need to be in any of the tax programs that they decide upon in Harrisburg?
Well, this goes, across the policy issues that we've talked about here. I think the last time we chatted, it was on transportation. And I used the principle in transportation. I said people should pay for the government that they use. And when it comes to transportation, we generally pay for that at the pump. I drive more, so I pay more at the pump.
Right.
Well, when it comes to education, we have really thrown that principle out of the window because people don't pay for the government they use when it comes to public schools. Just an example for myself, although my 4 children are not in our local public schools, the property taxes that I pay certainly don't even come close to what it would cost to pay for my kid in our local schools. And it's that way across the board in how we pay for public education. So we've really removed that principle entirely in public education. People are not paying for the government that they use there. And that, I believe, is a core part of this problem. And what we have got to solve is, well, how do we change how we pay for public education entirely, not just shifting it from property to sales, but saying, how do we adhere to this principle, which I think is a good one and is really the only way we will end up getting more efficiencies in our public education system is, well, people who have skin in the game, who have kids in the system, are going to pay attention more and hold down those costs.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way we get to it.
So when you say that, it sounds like you could lean more toward the 1189 bill, the Seth Grove bill, from our local area here, by the way, which basically says that. It says we're going to shift the burden down to the taxpayer at the local school district. And while it may just kind of look like a shell game on its face, by the same token, you now have people who are living in the district who now are going to maybe be more vocal on that local level as opposed to Harrisburg imposing these taxes, where you feel like you don't have quite as much of a voice.
Well, and that's one of the reasons, Gary, that I haven't been vocally in favor of shifting everything to the state, because I do believe that the one good aspect, and I put good in quotes,
Understood,
about property taxes is that people feel them. And it puts downward pressure on making sure that they don't rise. And if we relieve that pressure by saying, well, it's just going to be all in the income tax or a state sales tax, the problem there is that we end up relieving that pressure of holding down the cost. So I think that we have to look at ways in which we tie us closer to the government services we use, because, well, we will pay attention to them a lot more than if we just push this all off to Harrisburg.
Matt, I was struck yesterday reading this new House bill in Washington, and we use the word fees an awful lot now. But I get a kick out of it because, we talk about I think the governor talked about new fees at the pump in his budget statement this year. And someone said to me, isn't that a tax? I said, here's my definition of tax. Anything that takes away more of my choices and someone else makes them for me. Is that a fairly good definition for tax?
I think so, Gary, and I think, what people are really demanding is accountability for the taxes, the fees, whatever you want to call them, Gary, because we pay an extraordinary amount at all levels of government combined, and I think people rightfully should expect greater efficiencies before they come back and say, hey, we need more taxes or more fees. I think that's, when it comes to education, that has been an area that we have seen dramatic increases in spending, and I think we need to have some accountability there.
Matt, I think we're in a national debate right now, as well as in a state debate here, on what is the good use of a tax dollar. I know that horse left the barn a long time ago, but the idea is, I think there is a call now for more accountability by a lot of people in this country, and yet we also we've gotten this argument between givers and receivers, which has caused quite a divisive argument in the country as well, because people are saying, okay, wait a second, I'm earning this money. Didn't I make this? Didn't I do something? Of course, the president said you didn't make that, but the bottom line is, people are saying, yeah, I'm out there working. So at what point in time should I say, no, not anymore?
Well, I think that this is part of the discussion that we used to have in America a lot and no longer do. You used to see this on the House floor or the Senate floor, is about what is the proper role of government. And is this an area, as they debate this or that, whether it's health care or even in education, is what is the proper role for government here vis-a-vis the private sector, the for-profit sector, the voluntary sector, because what has happened is at every level of government, they start to believe that they are the only ones that hold solutions to our social problems. And so they're always coming up with a new plan at the federal level, state level, local level for government to solve that problem. And that's been, I think, our biggest challenge, is that we have lost that discussion about what is the proper role of government. Because I believe if we started having that, Gary, we would have more than enough money to pay for the core functions of government, of transportation and defense and our courts, all those things that we say, hey, this has to be done collectively. We can't do it individually. But government has gotten so far beyond just those core functions that this country was founded upon and that we debated for a long, long time in this country. To me, that's what we have to force, is that type of discussion at every level of government.
Another of those code words that's out there right now is the word invest. When I hear congressmen or presidents talk about invest, I reach for my wallet again very quickly because that means they're going to be taking more money to invest in something. And yet we've seen the government not be very good at investing in a lot of things, and new programs and so forth. And it seems like, once again, maybe one of the reasons that we're having a difficult time in the economy right now, though it's improving little by little, is the idea that they're not letting the American people, who I think are the wiser investors, do their own investing and letting the economy really recover in an authentic way.
Yeah, government is not a business, so therefore it cannot invest. Now, it can make expenditures, of course, that are beneficial to the rest of us, whether it's infrastructure that lasts for 40 or 50 years. Those are certainly expenditures that everybody can share in, but it's not an investment of government because you're using other people's money. And it's also saying, well, what would happen had we left that money in the private sector? Maybe it would have been invested far better than government ever would have.
Amen. Amen, amen, and amen on that one, Matt. Hey, great stuff this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.
Thanks, Gary. Take care.
Always a pleasure. Take care. Matt Brouillette here on the Morning News on WSBA.